see who under the umbrellas and the Panama hats. I have to say the Panama hats are a bit optimistic this afternoon, gentlemen. You won't be needing sunglasses, but I hope you're wearing a diving watch. Maximilian Schöberl, the patron of the Concorso di Eleganza, together with Dr. Fontana, the owner of Ville d'Este Hotel. Dr. Fontana's family has owned this hotel for many years, and are great stewards of yesterday evening. I'm not going to spoil the surprise, other than to say that it is driven by Adrian Heudel. Many people recognize as the man behind the look of BMWs for the current generation. Now the band is going to precede the first class of cars, and we're going to have a brief musical interlude in between each class, just for a couple of minutes to allow the cars to gather and to group. Very, very shortly, will be, when I find the list, Manhattan, one of the great American Art Deco landmarks. It has this V windscreen that was very fashionable in the period. There's a second screen in the back for the passengers that you can wind up and wind down. The mascot is this stylized gazelle, which they introduced in 1931, above what was known as the Vikings helmet radiator mascot. A very, very special car, with which I think from memory, just 7 tours drive. Avec toute la famille. A bit further forward if you would, just a little bit further forward. And pick up. If you want to switch off the engine. Talk about style. This was the first Lancia model that was not, in fact, named after a letter in the... Further, please, Jim Sprague, all the way from the USA with this one-off offered Alvis Speed 25 SC. Jim, if you want to switch the engine off, it won't take too much of your time, but it's probably going to You didn't buy a complete car from a luxury manufacturer. You bought a chassis and the engine, and then you went to the coach builder of your choice, depending on your imagination and your pocketbook, and commissioned whatever you wanted as a body on that car. Now, this particular body was called a barouche de Ville, and I've learned that in coach building terms, a barouche is a large 4-person horse-drawn carriage. Founded by an American, started in the UK. They built cars to rival companies like Bentley, Alvis, and perhaps Alfa Romeo from the continent. The V12 Rapide was the top of the range. After Bentley's own company went bust, he worked for Rolls-Royce for a little bit after they restarted his company, and then eventually he lured to Lagonda by a young solicitor, he had taken over the company, got the one of the wine making in 1935, and then promptly went bust. Alan Goose says there are also the sort of cars that became popular at Le Mans, obviously a road car race, and also here in Italy the legendary Pininfarina. For good measure, with this huge great star at the front, and as a famous Mercedes book said, nowhere except for in a fighter plane could either quite as much power and influx of the the end of that bonnet. Of course, with the amazing journalist Dennis Jenkinson once remarked that it was amazing to see the road cars, and in some cases even single-seaters. I'm going to let Emmanuel and Iris and Merle Mullen from Oxnard, California. Come on down, Merle. Very glamorous ladies team. But here it is, the EX Sports Experimental Phantom Prototype. And the gloves to match. You've got to hold those up, Alex. And there you go, the full team. Believe it or not, this car, after its duties as an experimental prototype, was actually sold to an Indian Maharaja, the Maharaja of Kashmir, no less, without any modification. What's more, it was sold to him despite having covered over 4,000 miles of testing. It was actually sold him as a brand new car. 1934. Look at that. Bit further. Perfect, perfect. Lovely to see. Italian style. William and Nicole Lyon and their lovely daughter all the way from Orange County, California, where this car was actually delivered. It wasn't Orange County. Santa Ana, is that correct? Santa Ana, Orange County. After starring at the London Motor Show, I can't imagine what the rather conservative Brits would have but somehow on a slightly more human scale after the origins of World War II. Not to mention back catalogue of the famous Stuttgart manufacturer. Oh, good afternoon to the Roof family. Lovely to see the whole family here. Good afternoon. And I guess you were given this car for your 19th birthday, is that right? Car specifically built for GT racing. In the early 60s, GT racing took over from sports car racing. In other words, open sports races, some of which we'll see later on in the Le Mans class, as the premier form of racing for both factories and private customers. Porsche built this car specifically to contend the 2-litre class of GT racing from the factory and drive home on the road. The big novelty with this car, the 904, was that the body for the first time off. If it doesn't start, don't worry, that's what the spoiler's for, it makes it easy to push. This was a car racing got more and more extreme, more and more modifications were allowed to the cars. This car raced in a class called Group 4. Concorso di Eleganza here at Ville d'Este with the 1979 Daytona 24 hours winning Porsche 935. Philip, Christy, great to see you both. Give us some space, please. That correctly. Sound like an auctioneer, Max, don't it? Here it comes. Now, this is a unicorn in the road car world. Porsche's answer to the McLaren F1. Now, the F1 was in those. Now we're going to speed things up a little bit because I don't want you all to get wet and catch a cold, but Class E coming up, I'm sorry it's probably a bit late for that, Class E coming up, Gran Turismo, the cars which effectively defined the look of the European post-war GT car. Abracadabra band, am I getting that right? Abracadabra band? Band abracadabra. Band, okay, sorry, Bandacadabra. Catching. Bandacadabra giving us the musical interludes. That's lovely, thank you very much. After the war, Fraser Nash continued on as agents for Porsche. Before the war, they were agents for BMW. Because the first owner was an American. I've offended him when he's leaving. Donald, are you going to go forwards a bit more? You want to go a bit? Don't run away, just go forwards a little whilst you're here. Ferrari 330 GTG Speciale of Bill Heineke, all the way, in this case, a bit further. All the way from Thailand. That I can't care to remember, but there's something about a Miura, especially a Miura in lime green, that it's hard to beat. Now, apart from the fact that this car is a little bit further, can you stop the engine? The latter. Ride Like the Wind by Chris Cross. If you have it on the stereo, you're going to impress me even more. Do switch it off, because I'd just like to talk about this car for a couple of minutes. Ride Like the Wind, which I'm sure you know has also been remixed for the new generation. Chris Cross, the American artist, wrote this song whilst on LSD about a criminal escaping from the border from America to the border in Mexico. As the man who would know is telling me that the basic design, believe it or not, is now 50 years old. And I was looking at one of these cars with Lorenzo's old colleague, Leonardo Fioravanti, a couple of years ago, and he was telling me 308 concept and stretch it a little bit, make it a bit wider, beef it up if you like. Obviously the mirrors were a distinctive.
Mambo italiano, prova ad assaggiare tutte triglie baccalà. Se da me torna tutto spiano, cambiando sempre l'italiano, ma con il suo continuo sempre.
You'll notice that the Italians in styling terms were fascinated in the 1950s by American design, especially jet plane design, rockets. The Americans were fascinated with Italian design, with the arrival of Italian movies, Italian music. I know that you're all getting slightly damp, but Corrado, dammi in 15 secondi un riassunto di cosa rende così speciale questa Lancia Florida.
Siamo nel 55, i Gio Ponti inaugura una nuova stagione nel mondo dell'architettura con la sua linea diamante facendo il grande certificato. La linea diamante viene ripresa in Pininfarina che sta laterale stante, la fiancata che ha i pannelli non curvi ma sovrapposti, quindi questa linea centrale con la luce crea un movimento di
You've got, yes, I hope it starts as well, but at least it's light if it doesn't. Jonathan Siegel, as always, complete with cigar, whiskey, I assume. Whiskey. We won't tell the local authorities you're on private property, so you're okay. Now, Damien. Jonathan, of course, another. Jörg Waller. There aren't many cars that Jörg, who's even taller than I am, can fit into, but luckily you've managed to find one. Switch off the engine for a second if you would. Yes, and it's a very smart, guess what? It's a Lancia timepiece. Fancy that! Berries, oh, times two! 1962 Maserati 3500 GT Coupe by Touring. All the way from Japan, thanks to Hidemoto Kimura. A round of applause, please. They flew this car all the way from Japan. That is all at Le Mans in 1950 with Lance Macklin, who of course was the driver in the Austin Heat a few years later when the terrible accident at Le Mans when the Mercedes went into the back of the Healy. Then on production. Whenever you're ready, make way please. It has a racing clutch and 1960 brakes. Cara, good afternoon. Perfect, that's it. Yes, give it a hand. Here is the Manuel giving out the prizes. More importantly, umbrella support as well. Testarossa, I'm sure many of you know. It's ready to race. Now, you... Now, I'm sure most of you recognize this car. It needs an introduction. in the penultimate class. Please welcome 1976 Porsche 936. Now the last car in our Le Mans class is the Ferrari 512 BBLM, which is scooping up the stones as it approaches of Christopher Stahl. Wow. Now I knew the man who raced this car before. He was a fantastic character. Fabrizio Miura came from Rome and his Mercedes and the cheaper Porsche, he, Max Hoffman, would sell it for them in the States. The only problem with that theory is that what started out as a $3,000 price target, after all of the modifications that were made to the car, the expensive V8 engine that was used to power it, this fantastic, almost Coke bottle styling by Count Goetz, who, as many of you may remember, Hong Kong John with this stunning Ferrari California Spider, which is back, and he painted US Army racing team down the sides of the car. And looking like something out of a Good Morning Vietnam type film, they would race this car down Mulholland Drive, along with Susan Garrity all the way from the States. The only example of the Apollo 3500 Gran Turismo Spider, which has, I think, it's a Buick 3.5 litre V8, isn't it? Emmanuel is holding the certificate. Abel for participating. Another one of those great tips.
They only fitted this roof, that's all.
Okay, whereas on this car they went completely crazy with the interior. Some sort of Gallic Barbarella fantasy with green suede, which I heard described the other day as looking like moss. And I mean, the whole thing is just completely mad, isn't it?
It's fantastic. Also, the roof is a very sporty look. I think the interior is gorgeous. It also has the square exhaust. Back in time, imagine all the exhaust.
Rainbow movie. Now you did the tour in this car on Thursday as well. How did you get on?
Looks like you are motorcycling enthusiast. 2023. Please send through, Tom, the winner of this year's Coppa d'Oro, the Ferrari 250 GT California Spider. Let's give it a round of applause, please. From the Keybridge 1929, no less. The prize goes to Ferrari and Pininfarina Spiders, owned by the French novelist Françoise Sagan. The 250 GT short wheelbase California Spider in its original and